meeting. Okay. Yeah. So we'll discuss some basics of metal and like how the software is made. Okay. We'll start from the software aspect, and then slowly we'll move on to using the software to basically achieve uh, different kinds of how we can make quantum chips, and how we can simulate them, and how we can obtain results for our designs, and then finally how we can send it for manufacturing, right? So let me just share my screen and we can get started then. Okay, so is my screen visible?
Yes, it's
Okay, great. So Qiskit Metal is basically a software, you guys might know about it, that we can like it's a software by IBM, and we can use it to basically design quantum hardware and quantum chips, specifically based on the uh, superconducting transmon architecture, right? So Qiskit
No,
Metal.
sorry about. I just got in. Thank you, guys. Sorry, go ahead.
No problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so so Qiskit Metal, like as a software, basically it has a few components. So like initially we'll see this software as like a black box. Okay, something like a black box. Let's discuss what we input to the software and what we get as the output. Okay, so this is the Qiskit Metal software. Okay, so for this particular thing, the inputs that we basically provide to this software come in three flavors. So the first one is the like simple Python code. Okay, so this has a really good connection with the Python libraries. Okay, so there are various libraries that in Python which can be used to make graphical user interface. Okay, so these are actually divided into your normal your script. Okay, so like you can write a particular code for that, or what you can do is you can write a Jupyter notebook for. I'm sorry. So what you can do is you can write a Jupyter notebook, and you can take that notebook and execute the cells one by one, and it basically forms your design. Okay, and the second way of how we can interact with this particular with Qiskit Metal is the GUI component. Okay, so since you guys like in the last meeting we discussed about installing Qiskit Metal and just running a few basic tutorials that are given in the repository. So you might have seen a GUI that comes up when you start the Metal interface. Okay, so these are the two main methods by which we interact. So the input methods. The output methods actually include again two types. So one is like you want to output your design and send it to manufacturing. So there is a format known as the GDS format. GDS format. Okay, and this is like a globally accepted format which many companies use to manufacture hardware. Okay, and yeah, the second type of format is related to ANSYS. Okay, so since ANSYS is also a 3D modeling software, so we can actually output in ANSYS format, but again this is something which is under works. So so Metal doesn't support this till now, but it's bound to be released in the future. GDS is available with us, so let me mark that as a green. Okay, GDS is available to us, but ANSYS is still under works. Okay, and also there are different types of analysis. So what I mean by analysis is like you have made some particular design, and this design is made in this particular part of the software, and to verify that design you do some analysis on that. Okay, and those analysis are generally two types. So the first is the lumped model analysis, okay, which is this, and this is done using the ANSYS software, so ANSYS Q3D, okay, ANSYS Q3D, which is basically the ANSYS electronic suite that like we talked about downloading. And then the second one is regarding the EPR analysis, or energy participation ratio. So what these analyses are, we'll discuss later. Nilay will talk more about it, but this is just to give a brief overview of what all is included. Okay, so this EPR analysis is done by the HFSS software. HFSS software. So HFSS is also a product of ANSYS, but just to differentiate, we say this as ANSYS, this as HFSS.
So HFSS like a part of our ANSYS installed product, right?
Yeah. So it
So-
is. Oh no, sorry. HFSS, I think we have to install separately.
No, see, we installed
Okay.
ANSYS electronic suite, so that actually has both, I guess.
Okay. Then.
Okay.
Then
Yeah.
it's, yeah. I'm
Okay.
not very sure on the installation part because I'm on a Mac, so
Okay.
I haven't gone through the installation process yet. I'm still waiting.
No
for
problem. Yeah. Okay. Mine is done, but I think I didn't explore the product yet. Yeah. So
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So so these two are the softwares for analysis. So basically now Metal basically connects with these two softwares externally, okay, through inter-process communication, and it basically sends the design whatever we make for the analysis in these softwares. Okay, so just to give a brief overview of the
question. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt. But could you go a bit up? The GDS part, is it something the Gerber file that we have for PCBs and all? Is it something?
Yeah. So for 3D printing and all, you have those Gerber files, right?
For the
Similarly,
PCB design, I suppose.
yeah, 3D printing and this like PCB design, almost they use similar formats.
Okay.
But the GDS is also something like that.
It's basically termed as graphic design system. So when you have fabricated your chip, after the ANSYS it's being rendered. So if you want to really fabricate it on a real device, so you give the GDS file. It's same as the STL file which we use for 3D printing.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
And it also like it mentions different constraints and different parameters, and like let's say the substrate on which we want to make the particular chip and everything. Okay, so it contains those details. So the substrate parameters, then the constraints regarding the design. Okay, what should be the width and height of your transmon and etc. Okay, all those parameters are in the GDS file basically.
Okay.
Yeah. So okay, coming back to Qiskit Metal, we have, so as a software, Qiskit Metal actually has certain different classes. So it's basically a piece of software, and to efficiently interact with the software, it is actually important to know what class level description of the software is. Okay, so some important classes that you will be encountering are basically this. So there is QDesign class, which is like the whole QDesign basically encompasses the whole whatever design you make. Okay, and under that there is one class known as design planer. Okay, so this design planer is like a subclass of QDesign, which basically says that my design is on a plane. Okay, so it's a 2D design. So as of now, only design planer is there in Qiskit Metal, but there are other types of design also. We can do 3D design, and like we have different types of design for classical systems, right? Classical chips. Similarly, more things can be added, and it's under progress. But as of now, we just have one, which is design planer, which is a 2D design. Okay. The second class is basically Q component. Okay, and Q component is nothing but a library sort of, where like all the like commonly used components are there. Okay, so for example, your transmon. Okay, transmon is there. Transmon qubit. So there are different types of transmons as well. There is a transmon with charged line, then like transmon with flux lines, and so on. Okay, so all these components. Then you have the coplanar waveguides. Okay, so coplanar waveguides also come under the Q component class. Okay, and various types of readouts and everything. Readouts also come under the Q components class. Okay, the third major class is regarding Q renderer. Okay, this is this basically handles the output. So we talked about the output methods here, right? So Q renderer basically is to output the design into a specific manufacturing format. So at like right now, only GDS is available, but as I said, more output formats might be available in future. Okay, and finally we have the analysis part. So this analysis is basically something which is used to interact with the like to start this inter-process communication with these two softwares, ANSYS and HFSS. Okay, so that is for that. Okay, and if we see like a connection sort of thing, so we have let me take a different color. So we have input formats here, so that is Jupyter Notebook or whatever, the GUI, if you're working on GUI, that. And this is your full metal software, and it looks something like this, where you have like Q design. You have a Q design here. Okay, so Q design. I'm not writing it the full form because there is no space. Okay, inside this you can have multiple designs like this. Okay, and one of them is your design planer. Okay, DP is design planer. Okay, and so this input goes here first. Okay, so like we are making the design by coding in Python basically, and this is connected to a library of sorts, which is the Q components library. Okay, and once we are done with the design, we actually send it to the Q renderer. Okay, Q renderer like this, and we can also, like in between, we can connect it to some analysis. Okay, so analysis, and finally like, so analysis is like an iterative process. So it analyzes the things, and then again it sends back the design with the optimized parameters or something. Okay, and then finally when we want to export through the Q renderer, we can export it into the GDS format. Okay, so that is the whole procedure. So here you have the Jupyter Notebook. Okay, and this is like the whole architecture of Qiskit Metal. Okay, and specifically like we also talk about the Q design class. So there are some other components in Q design class. Okay, so one is the like inside design there should be some components which makes the design, right? So inside Q design we can have either components from the Q components class. Okay, or we can have your basic geometrical components as well, which is actually so Qiskit Metal is actually based on an open geometry framework in Python. So yeah, so we can add our own geometry. We can create our own custom components. So that is taken care by Q geometry tables. Okay, then the third one is we need something to connect all these components with each other. So there is QNet for that. So like connecting all these things. And then the last one is your you can include the Q renderer inside the Q design. So like you can essentially what you can do is you can specify in initially only what type of rendering you want for the design. Okay, so you can actually pass one more parameter here, which is like to define what kind of renderer you want. Like you want to export in GDS format or in some kind of ANSYS 3D representation format or something. Okay, so again, as I told, only GDS is available as of now, but there might be more such things available in the future. So yeah, this was like an overview of the software. Okay, and let us now quickly come to the like how we write code for Qiskit Metal. Okay, so just a second, let me change my window here. So is this visible?
Yeah. Yes, Sabir. Almost. Yeah.
Yeah.
Screen.
Okay. So yeah, so this is some metal code that you can also write. Okay, and there are various parameters that I'll be talking about. So let's one by one execute these cells. Okay, so first importing metal and importing some essential things from metal. Okay, and finally, so you can see here I'm initializing a design, and this designs is the base class, which is the QDesign class, and then I can import design planer, which is like a 2D design as we discussed, and finally you can render this in the GUI format. So Metal has a GUI, so we can render that, and this is just a property to like overwrite existing components. Otherwise it gives an error that this component already exists. So if you make some modifications, you would have to delete that component and then again draw it. So this is generally good to enable. So as soon as I run this particular thing, you can see this particular GUI shows up. Okay, and yeah, and now we can see all these axes. Okay, so it basically gives us a full like an XY plot of where our components are being placed. Okay, and there are many things that you can do here. So like if you go in this particular thing, you can see the components, and as we place the components, you can see we can change the different parameters in each component. Okay, so yeah, let's get back to Jupyter Notebook. So here yeah, so our base design basically contains a lot of things. Okay, so if I just print one more this thing, so this is a design planar object, and like it contains various properties. Okay, and one of them is the chip. So you can actually define multiple chips in a design. Okay, so Metal actually gives you that functionality, but here we are only working, since this is an initial design, we are only working with a single quantum chip here. So we name that as the main chip, and if you see we have this kind of dictionary of these chips. So I have printed design.chips, and it gave me this dictionary which has different parameters like the material we are using and the layer, like if we are doing any layering of multiple if we are layering the chip, then we can mention that here, the size of the chip, so center XYZ, then size XYZ, and then some more parameters. So similarly you can, like, if there is some other chip, you can do chips dot like you can add some other chip, like my chip, for example. Okay, and since I have not added any parameters there, it's giving me an empty thing. But if you add any parameters, you can see that there are other chips also in that. Okay, now the first thing that we do is we start by placing some components. Okay, so we have defined our chip size as 20 by 20 millimeters, that is like 2 by 2 centimeters. Okay, so initially what we do is we start with the components from the Q renderer, the Q components library. So we take this particular, so we have the Q library under qubits and transmon pocket. We have this pre-made component, which is the transmon, like normal transmon qubit. Okay, so we take this and let me just execute from the top. We take this and we execute this, so it gives us all the properties by default that are there for the transmon. Okay, so you can see there is inductor width, and then pad width and pad height, and all these parameters. And what these actually do is like change the structure of the Q component. So let's say I build a particular Q component, okay, and it should show up. Okay, yeah, so you can see this is the component. Okay, this is a transmon qubit, and you can see the two capacitive pads and a Josephson junction in between. Okay, so what I can do is now I can like change the parameters. So I can change the pad width, and it will so I can change the pad width and it will make the pad shorter, or I can change the pad height and let's say 150 in this case, so it broadens the pads and so on. Okay, and also I can change the pad gap. So instead of 30, if I want like 150, so it changes the gap, everything. You can control all these parameters like this. So like you define a dictionary for the parameters, and then you can pass that particular dictionary while instantiating that particular parameter, that particular component. Okay, so you can define the position, XY position, and then these connection pads. So these connection pads are the thing that is generally used to connect to different, let's say, readouts or different qubits even. Okay, so let me just dial these back up to the original value. Okay, and you'll see that so yeah, this is like how you draw a transmon. Okay, and if you want another transmon, you can either do like T2 equal to transmon pocket, and then define all these parameters again for that. Or what you can do essentially do is you can store all these transmons into a list, and then you can append one by one all these transmons. Okay, so if I run this particular thing, you can see now there are two transmons that I have initiated. Okay, and these two transmons are at certain x and y coordinates that I have specified in the code. Okay, so these are from the center, so the position is taken from the center. Okay, and yeah, so that's how you can add multiple transmons. So if I want to add another transmon, I can just take this thing. Okay, take this thing, and let's say I copy this here and Q3 for example, and I shift it up by some 3 millimeters. And if I run this, you can see I have another transmon here now. So that's how you can keep creating all these things. And there is one more neat feature which is which can be used to highlight these components. So is this thing?
I had a doubt. So the legs of if I'm getting it wrong, I'm sorry, but the legs which are connected on the transmon qubits, these are used to connect to the other qubits or the waveguides, right? If I'm getting it correct.
Yeah, correct. So these are again like you can edit all these. So like you can have up to 4 connections here. So this is pad A, B, C, D, and so on. Okay, so like if I just highlight these particular things, so you can see this is A here. If you would have put, it would be B, C, and D. Okay, so these A, B, C, D are basically your 4 pads that you can use for connecting these qubits to other qubits. Okay, and like if you want, if let's say I don't want the A pad in the qubit 3, I can just comment this out, and I can again render it, and you can see this A pad essentially goes away from this qubit. Okay, so all these things are editable, so you can write code to edit your design, and yeah, everything is done like that. Okay, and I'll just render this back here, and okay, so that was regarding transmon. You can also make connections. So how you can make connections is using these components. So under this Qiskit metal and .q library .t lines. So this t lines library has like different interconnections. So if I just put a dot here and tab, so you can see there is anchored part, frame part, meandered, all these things. So generally like for making it a bit easy for this demonstration, I am using meandered because it automatically creates those wavy like structures, waveguides, which we need. Okay, you can use any other class as well. So we use this root meander function, and we provide some options. Okay, so where we want the lead to start and where we want it to end, and then asymmetry is something like how much gap we want in those meandered paths, and I'll show how these meandered paths are like how they look like. And then again you can specify the start pin and ending pin, and like I want to start from, let's say I want to start from this pin and end at this pin. Okay, so I can specify the pin numbers for that, and then yeah, so if I run this particular thing, you can see it created a particular meandered path from C to A. So like I'm connecting it from Q2A to Q1C, and you can see that it is connecting from Q2A to Q1C. Okay, so like that you can specify various parameters, so asymmetries and everything. And again this is like an array. So this array stores multiple, so this array can store multiple CPWs. Okay, and yeah, that's sort of the basics. Okay, and now like just to show how we can go towards proper complete chip design, I just came up with like a small example. Okay, so what you can do is so this has 16 qubits. Okay, so if I run this particular thing, you can see it has different qubits in different directions, and like we can now connect these qubits. So these are 16 qubits, and it's like right now it's randomly arranged. Okay, it like this particular formation doesn't mean that it is the most efficient one. This is just for like demo purpose that I have made. Okay, and you can see we can define each x and y position for that, and the orientation if we want it 90 degree rotated or 180 degree rotated, and so on. Okay, and yeah, so this particular so we have appended all these things into the transmon this transmon array, and then we are finally rendering it by using GUI rebuild and GUI autoscale. So these are the two functions that you will need very frequently. So these two and one more, this design.delete all components. So like if you want to make some changes, so in this demo, like I put 2 qubits initially, and then I'm now going to 16 qubits. So I need to delete the previous components that I made. So delete all components is just one handy function by which you can delete some previously made components, and then you can remake those in some other Jupyter Notebook cell. Okay, and now once we have made this, we can again make interconnects. So all these interconnects, you can see like from one qubit to another and specifying the pin value. We can make these interconnects, and they should appear now. So all these are interconnects. Okay, and these are basically connecting one qubit to another, and this is what we mean by the qubit connectivity. So like if you go on IBM Q Experience and you see different hardwares, so they give you a qubit connectivity graph. Okay, so that graph is actually like directly relatable to the formation in which the qubits are there. So like each qubit is a circle in that, and each of these meandered interconnects is a line connecting the 2 qubits. So that's how that is represented. Okay, and this is a particular design that you can make. And finally then we need readouts. Okay, so for readouts, so in the previous demo I didn't show readouts because I was a bit short on time to create this particular demo. So but readouts, I have put it in the final design here. So for readouts we need 2 things. One is like some place to solder a particular wire which will be connected to the RF signal that comes from outside the dilution refrigerator, right? So we need a point to solder that particular thing. And then also we want a readout resonator. So that resonator is, again, we can use a CPW as we have used in the interconnects here to make that particular resonator, and that resonator needs to be tuned in such a way that like the L and C components need to be tuned in such a way that we can using the microwave pulses we can interact with the qubit. Okay, so again I'm saying this design is not exactly to the specifications, and it's not the most optimized design. This is just what I made for demo purpose. So I'll show you the simulation results as well, and you can see that it's not perfect. Okay, so these are the pads, or like what we call them as launch pads. So you can see this so from qlibrary.terminations. So termination is where our we attach like our chip basically terminates, and we start attaching the RF signal cables. Okay, so the coaxial cables from the RF components, that the classical components. Okay, so this is where the physical wires are soldered, and it looks something like this. Okay, and finally we can again we can use that interconnects, the CPWs, to again connect all these components to each of the qubits to basically give us the resonators. So as you can see, now we have each readout resonator connected to the qubit. Okay, and we can just, so this is basically this is a fully designed chip. Okay, and one thing you need to ensure is that also you need to make sure that your entire chip comes in your chip size. So initially we defined the chip size to be 20 by 20 millimeter, and you can see it is almost like 9 mm here and minus 9 mm, so it comes under 18 mm. So you need to ensure that the whole design fits into your chip. Okay, so that thing you need to ensure at the end. And then yeah, this is on more good utility if you want to take a screenshot and share it. So directly you can take a screenshot from the Jupyter Notebook instead of opening the GUI and then taking a screenshot in your system. Okay, and one more last thing is that how to use the GUI. So for using the GUI, you can actually see this. You can see all the components here. So whatever name you have assigned, Q1, Q2, Q3 up to Q16, and then all the CPWs, and then these are all the readout resonator launch pads, and then these are the interconnects for like basically the resonator. Okay, and you can actually like you can double click on some component and you can see all the parameters here, and you can change them. Let's say I don't want to make this 30, I want to make this 50. So for this particular qubit, it will change it to 50. Okay, so you can do the same thing with the GUI as well, but I would say it is good if you make yourself comfortable with the Jupyter Notebook version, because that is more flexible in terms of recreating your design. Here, like if you put one by one each component and then create your design, and let's say if you forget to save or something, you cannot recreate your design, and it's very tedious to like click on each parameter and each component and then change each parameter here. So in a Jupyter Notebook, what you can essentially do is you can like group certain things that are common. So for example, in the transmon, I know that the pad width, pad height and pad gap is something that I need to keep constant for all the transmons, right? So what I do is I create this particular general options dictionary, okay, and then I don't have to specify these options everywhere for each transmon. I can just do star general opts, and that basically unpacks this dictionary and like gives it as a dictionary to this particular parameter inside transmon pocket. So all these kind of shortcuts you can do in the Jupyter Notebook version rather than using the GUI directly. So yeah, that was one thing that I wanted to share. Okay, and yeah, so this is how you can create a design, and just quickly I'll also show what kind of output you can get from the from the analysis, and then I'll pass it on to Nilay for talking about analysis. So when you do the analysis, so let's say I do the Q3D analysis, that is the finite element analysis. Okay, I'll get something like this. Okay, I'm not sure if this is visible. I hope this is visible.
It's visible.
Yeah, it's visible.
Great. So you will get an output something like this, where you have these transmon properties.
Yes.
So this is your qubit frequency. Okay, so here in this example, the example that I showed just now, here it was coming around 8.19 gigahertz. So we'll talk about what a good set of parameter looks like. Okay. And then this EC, which is the capacitor energy, and the Josephson junction energy. This alpha is basically your enharmonicity. Okay, so the enharmonicity between 0-1 transition frequency and 1-2 transition frequency, that is your alpha. Dispersion is something we'll cover later on. Okay, and then L and C values are basically your effective inductance and capacitance, which we calculate through the capacitance matrix, which comes out from the finite element analysis. So in ANSYS, we are essentially finding this capacitance matrix in order to simulate the we are essentially finding the capacitance matrix, and how we do that is we take the transmon and divide it into very small segments, and then run the lumped model analysis on that, and that's how we get the capacitance of the whole structure, and we get the capacitance matrix for that. And finally we have the T1 time. So here, because this is a very bad design, you can see it's giving 3.8 seconds of T1, which is the relaxation time. So this is the wrong result. Okay, so by seeing these parameters initially, we can actually predict if a result is correct or if a result is wrong. Okay, so ideally the T1 time should be around like 100 to 150 microseconds. Okay, and then so this is transmon properties. We also have coupling properties. So coupling properties are basically like within 2 qubits you have the interconnect. So what is the cavity coupling with that of that particular interconnect, and if you have readouts, then what is the coupling constant for that particular readout. Okay, and you also have the chi value. So chi is defined as g square by your delta, which is detuning. Okay, so you have the chi of that particular bus. Okay, and then you have 1 by t1, which is like metric to, again, it is used to sort of see like what are the fluctuations that are happening within the bus. Okay, and this is the t1 time for the bus, and there are multiple buses, so like there are a lot of values here that are there. So you will get a long list of values if you simulate like 16 qubits. 16 qubits takes a lot of resources, by the way. And finally, it's much more than I expected. I want to show this graph. Yeah, so this graph is what you will get in the end, and what this graph means is that these are the number of passes that we do. So it's just like iterations. So it does multiple iterations and tries to optimize these parameters. Okay, and as you can see here, the alpha value needs to increase because like alpha is generally like the enharmonicity, which is alpha, is generally in around minus 300 megahertz of range. Okay, and the frequency, the qubit frequency here is decreasing. So initially it was some 8800, now it has decreased to 8200 megahertz. Okay, but since this is not a very good design, so it has stopped at 8200. Otherwise it would have gone to like some 5 gigahertz, which is like the ideal transmon frequency. Then we have these particular graphs are basically the number of solved elements. So each pass number, it takes more and more elements to solve, and this delta is your dispersion. So dispersion, as I told, it's a topic of a different discussion. And this is one more important graph, which is the chi convergence. So chi, if you remember, is from the Zlatko slides we were discussing, like when we do the readout for a particular qubit, this chi value is the thing which shifts the frequency from if the qubit is in state 0, the resonator will give maximum transmission at some particular frequency WC, and then if that particular if the transmon is in state 1, it will give the maximum transmission at WC minus chi. Okay, so this chi is that value, and as you can see, like if we just have to see the 0 and 1 states here. Okay, so the 0 state is like here, which is almost close to 0, and it's a bad design, so it's not it's not the correct graph that you should get. Ideally you should get only two values, which is 0 and 1, and 0 should be around here, which means that when the qubit is in state 0, the chi value is also 0, and hence there is like the frequency at which the transmission is there from the readout resonator is at frequency omega c. Okay, and then when it is at 1, this orange curve is basically 1. So as you can see here, it is around 3.5 kilohertz difference. So this is in megahertz. Okay, so 3.5 kilohertz difference here, minus 3.5 kilohertz is the chi value. So transmission will occur at omega c minus 3.5 kilohertz. Okay, and again, when it comes to the like a good value, we should have at least 100 about 100 kilohertz of difference between these two 0 and 1 states. Okay, and we can see, since this is not a good design, we are only getting about 3.5 kilohertz of chi value. Okay, and that means that our simulation is not good. Okay, and our aim is to basically improve upon this and finally get to some particular value which has a chi of 100 megahertz, an alpha of minus 300 megahertz, and a frequency of 5 gigahertz. Okay, these three are the main goal that we have. So these graphs actually help us in understanding that. And to just give a brief list of the parameters that we want, like the perfect parameters that we want, is something like this. You have the qubit frequency around 5 gigahertz. Okay, then your EJ by EC value should be around 50 or more. Okay, and the alpha value, that is the anharmonicity value, should be around 300 minus 300 megahertz. Then the T1 value, which is the relaxation time, should be around 100 microseconds, 100 to 150 microseconds. Okay, and your difference of chi value between the 0 and 1 state should be around 100 kilohertz. So if you are getting those parameters, then you can say that your transmon properties are good and your design is also good. Okay, so yeah, this was just a brief discussion on what kind of parameters we expect from the result. So yeah, I think that's all from my side. So maybe I'll ask Nilay to.
Abir, I had a doubt. You gave the design, right, in which the qubits were all the qubits were interconnected from various connecting paths, right? So the question I wanted to ask over here is, do these connections, the interconnection between qubits, let's say if we want to, give a relation between the error that the qubits encounter when they, measure, or if the operation is performed upon it, so does that error depend upon how the qubits are interconnected, or it should be connected from a specific connecting pad to another connecting pad, a specific connecting pad or something? Is that specificity there or
So
something?
one thing that you need to ensure, which is very very important, is that so here, for the simplicity of design, I have given all these pad width, pad height and pad gap parameters as same to all the transmons. Okay, but the thing is, in a like real hardware design, you don't. So let's say I send a microwave pulse to this qubit. I don't want this qubit to interact with the other qubit which it is connected to. So what I generally do is I detune the frequencies of these qubits. So let's say if this qubit is at 5 gigahertz, this qubit would be at some 5.1. This qubit would be at some, again it can be 5.1 because these two are not directly connected. This one and this one is not connected. Okay, but then let's say yeah, so this okay, so there might be a chance that, like, so your adjacent qubits basically should have different frequencies, okay, different resonant frequencies, so that if you give a on resonant pulse here, it doesn't disturb the state of the other two or the other three, in this case, qubits. Okay, but still you can do operations by giving something known as a cross resonance pulse, which is used to do 2 qubit gates. Okay, so for example, this qubit is at 5 gigahertz, this is at 5.1 gigahertz. So essentially I'll drive this qubit in the off resonant regime and give a microwave pulse of 5.1 gigahertz, and then that's how I can like implement a cross resonance gate, which is like a ZX or like RZX gate, so rotation about Z and X axis simultaneously. So this rotation value, then, like, according to the like if I shape the pulse properly, I can basically make this ZX gate into a like a C0 gate. I can add some single qubit gates as well for proper tuning. So yeah, so your question being, how do we find this particular thing, right? So how do we ensure this is the best thing? So I would say that the length of this the total length of this meandered element should be somewhere near to the resonance values of either one of the qubits. Okay, so either let's say 5 gigahertz is the frequency, so you take the like you convert it into wavelength, you do lambda by 4, okay, and you get the length of this particular element, and it should be in some particular like vicinity of that to get the best like to get the least reflection of signals. Okay, so that is between qubit and between two qubits. Okay, so let's say if this has this is at 5.1, and to entangle these two, I choose to give a 5.1 gigahertz signal to this. So this particular resonator should also be tuned to 5.1 gigahertz to get the maximum transmission. Okay, so that thing you have to ensure. And when it comes to readout resonator, the readout resonator again, it has to be tuned to the qubit frequency. So if this is at 5 gigahertz, this readout resonator should also be at 5 gigahertz. Otherwise, there will be some reflections and all those things which will corrupt the state. Okay, or maybe even give a wrong output in that case. So yeah. So this is not a good design because this was just made for demo purpose. Okay, but basically you need to change the parameters of each of these transpons and each of these couplers to get a good design. Okay, that's what you do.
Okay. Hey, Abir, I think that's very, very nice. Yeah, nice to see the full design. And the one thing is, this output is you simulated, right? It's a simulator run.
Yeah.
And one thing is, I'm not getting a context. ANSYS is where it is used. This output can be given to ANSYS for tuning, or
yeah. Please go
okay,
ahead.
sorry. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, so this design can, like we'll see in the future sessions actually, or like there are tutorials available as well, so you can either refer those, or we'll anyways discuss how to give a design for analysis. So there are like inbuilt functions in Qiskit Metal. You can just do like I think you can do something like design dot send to ANSYS or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so using just a single function, if your ANSYS is running in background, then it just does interprocess communication, and it basically renders the whole design in ANSYS and runs the simulation for like lumped element model simulation for you, and returns the results. So this whole thing is done by just a single statement in the Python notebook. So,
Wow. So the ANSYS will do what kind of analysis? Is it is a complete